Hello, dear book dragons. It's May already, and it's time to talk about the books I read in April. I read 9 books and I enjoyed them all, but I think I should take up that I do sometimes actually start books that I don't really like or don't feel I have time for and don't finish. And I usually don't talk about those books because I don't finish them. But I just want to mention that I, this month, started 2 books that I didn't finish, but still enjoyed. And the first one was like a collection of stories by Patricia McKillip, Wonders of the Invisible World. And it was a collection of kind of fantasy stories, but set in our world. And I really enjoyed them. But they felt more and more creepy. They're really well written. But I felt like, oh, something bad is going to happen, and I just decided I didn't want to continue with it. I rather wanted to read her other book that I'm going to talk about. But if you do like a collection of stories and do like kind of a creepy feeling, you should definitely read it. And the other book that I didn't finish was All Creatures Great and Small by James Herriot, which was a really funny book, but also a very, very thick book, and it's a book from the library. And I think I read up to 200 pages and felt I was kind of finished with it. It was enjoyable to read. It was really, really funny. If you've seen the TV series, you know what I mean. Or maybe you have read the book. But I felt it started becoming quite repetitive, and it was a lot about birth of calves and horses and stuff, and he was not so well treated always. James Herriot is talking about his own life as a veterinarian in Yorkshire, and as I myself is born in Yorkshire, I felt that really fun to read about. But I mean, I moved to Sweden when I was 1.5, so I don't really have any connection to Yorkshire in that way. But it's beautiful landscape, and his description of the landscape is wonderful, and so funny about his relationship with his boss, who's just a crazy man. He just says something and then he says exactly the opposite of what he said the day before, and it's funny, but I felt kind of finished after 200 pages. Maybe I'll come back to it another day, but I just was so many other things I wanted to read, so that's why I didn't finish it. But now up towards the books I did read. So the first 3 books were actually reread. I reread a little magical realism detective books, which is Daisies for Innocence, Nightshade for Warning, and Marigolds for Malice by Bailey Cattrall, which is these 3 books about a woman called Eliana, who owns this perfume shop, and she has this old book that she's inherited from her grandma, and all the women in her family has this connection with the herbs, scents, and how to use them for good for other people. And as I read them before, I knew what was going to happen when it came to the murder mysteries, but I didn't read them for the murder mysteries. I read them for the magic, for the herbs, for the very sweet story about her connection to the earth and her garden. She has like a fairy garden. She's done behind her shop, and it's just fun and maybe not light, because there's this frustrating relationship with her ex, who's not a very nice person, and then there's this really annoying policeman who is friend. So don't read it if you have trouble with the annoying man. I didn't feel that they were as annoying as the second time I read it, because usually things doesn't feel as dramatic the second time I read them. Sometimes, maybe sometimes not. But yeah, it was really fun to reread, and as you can see, there's a cute little cat there. It's a Russian blue hair, Nabokov, which apparently means something about blue, oof, um, butterfly, blue butterflies, and her little dog. He's so cute. Yeah, it's just easy, fun books to read, and I really recommend them. I mean, they're not 5-star books, but they're 4 stars. Yeah, 4-star books. 4-star books. She has also written another series, which I've read some of them, but didn't buy all of them. Which is also about baking and magic. There are some baking in this too, but it's it's more about the perfumery. Anyway, really nice. And her baking books, she's called something else. So if you're interested in them, she writes under another name. Nearly the same, Bailey Cates. So, and then I read the other Patricia McKillip book, In the Forests of Sarah. Such a beautiful book. Beautiful cover by one of my favorite artists, Kinuko Icraft, who I found when I did a lot of coloring. I have like 100 of coloring books, and I have her coloring book. It's beautiful pictures. So sometimes when I find a book and I was like, oh, that's her art, it makes me so happy. As you can see, it's so many details. And this is about a prince, a princess, and a scholar, and 2 magicians, you could say, and a witch, who is kind of Baba Yaga witch. And you get to follow the prince and the princess and the scholar mostly through their eyes, and also a bit from the younger magician. And in the start of this book, the prince is coming home to the castle, but just before he comes home, by mistake, his horse managed to kill Baba Yaga's one of her chickens. Well, she's actually not called Baba Yaga, but it's just definitely a Baba Yaga kind of witch, because she has this house on 3 legs that can walk away. So it's exactly like Baba Yaga, but she's called something else. I've forgotten her name. Or the mother of all witches. It doesn't matter, but it's such a beautiful writing, and this forest where she lives is just such a magical place. And the story, I mean, it's like an old fairy tale, but in a new way, because it is written from different kind of views and much more deep than an ordinary fairy tale. Because an ordinary fairy tale wouldn't be as thick as it's. And yeah, it feels quite a lot like Ursula Le Guin, if you know her gorgeous book, The Books of Earthsea. It's very symbolic fantasy, about especially around the magic. Like, the magic is very, you have to know who you are, and when you know who you are, when you can meet your darkness, then things will solve. And it's a little bit like that in here as well. Well, the prince comes home, and his father is not very happy that he's been away so long. He says, oh, you're going to marry this princess from another country, it's already arranged, she's coming tomorrow. And he's like, no, I don't want to marry again. He had a wife who died a year ago. And then we get to follow this princess in the other country, it's a much smaller country, and they're kind of afraid that if she doesn't go, this king from the other country will kind of take over. So she feels forced, and we follow this scholar who's kind of by mistake, or we don't really know why, but this magician in this country chooses him as his scribe. I think because he was daydreaming when the wizard came to the library, and I guess that he could really feel that this man could really dream and imagine things really strongly, that he wanted him as his scribe. And because he becomes the magician's scribe, he kind of gets in the middle of this princess stuff. And he gets to write down the magician's life story, really. And meets the princess because she goes to the magician and like, I don't want to marry this prince from this horrible country. The king is horrible and stuff like that. And but she doesn't really have a choice. And this old magician, he's really old and very sick, so he can't follow her. But he kind of calls on a younger magician who's away somewhere to help her. And he promises to do anything to defend her life. So that's how the new magician comes into the story. And he seems a nice guy, and he's very devoted to her. But things gets more and more complicated. And going back to the prince, as I said, he was also very angry. He didn't want to marry this princess, and he's not allowed to leave the castle, but he does so anyway. He sees his firebird in the distance and gets obsessed by this firebird, so he leaves the castle to go after this firebird and meets Baba Yaga again, and has to promise her to find the firebird for her. Oh, there's a lot of dealings with this witch, forwards and backwards. I don't want to talk anything more about the book. It's just beautiful writing, and I really need to read more of Patricia McKillip. So this is from the library, and I know there are several more books there. So I'm definitely going to find more books from the library, and I give this 5 stars. It's definitely a 5-star book for me. And then I read something totally different, still fantasy, but more like cozy fantasy. The Faraway Inn by Sarah Beth Durst. You can see this beautiful edges, and the cover is purple. I love a purple cover. And this is just a very fun, very cute story about a 16-year-old called Kalisa, who's definitely don't want to stay at home in New York for the summer because her boyfriend has cheated on her, and so she's desperate to leave, and her mums, she has 2 mums, sends her to her old aunt she hasn't seen since she was a little kid, who lives in far away. Well, doesn't matter, but out in the countryside, far away from home, up in the mountains anyway. And she arrives there, and this inn is really downtrodden. The first thing that happens is just she walks through and gets stuck in something just in front of the house, like a staircase. Yeah. And and there's a lot of mystical things going on there. There's a statue that moves. There's a mirror that says words. Well, it doesn't say words. It kind of, you see them on the mirror. But she doesn't know that this inn is magical, so she's really confused in the beginning and she thinks she's imagining things. There's a young another young teenager there that she really likes from the start. He's adorable. He definitely is adorable. And there's this cute cat. And when she does realize this place is full of magic, because her aunt is like, she has magic. She can open portals to other worlds. Like every room in this inn has a closet that goes to another place. Well, almost every room. And but they're kind of starting to not work properly. And the young man that she meets, her father has been gone for a very long time. So he's been very lonely there, and her aunt is not very kind to her. She doesn't want her there. She wants her to go home again, but Kalisa is very like, no, I'm staying. I will do anything to stay. And she works so hard. And I've seen a 16-year-old work so hard to be able to stay. And yeah, it's a sweet book. And she loves to bake, so there's a lot of baking in this book, and obviously a lot of magic. Not that she sees, like, yeah, it takes a while before she realizes the magic. But and the people who's staying there is really fun as well. Very, because they are from other worlds, they're obviously quite different. And yeah, it's really, really fun. So if you want a light, fun read, you can definitely, I really recommend The Faraway Inn, and it has nothing to do with her earlier fantasy books, so it's standalone. I gave it 4.8 stars. Good, so good. And then during the whole month of April, I read The Lady of the Camellias with my classic book club with Emily Arntz. And we read The Lady of the Camellias by Alexander Dumas Fils, so the son of Alexander Dumas. And we were supposed to read like a chapter a day, but I usually skipped some days and then read some more. I read 2-3 chapters every time because it feels like I get into the story better then. And La Traviata and Moulin Rouge is based on this story, and a lot of plays and musicals. But yeah, well, Moulin Rouge is a musical. So it's an important classic, you could say. And it's about this obsession. He calls it love in the book. He's talking about this young man, Armand, who talking about he meets, well, the writer himself had this relationship with a woman who was a special kind of, what do they call it in this book? They could have such a strange name. Kept a woman. And for me that sounds so strange. Well, kind of how would you say that in a good word now without sounding disrespectful? Yeah, a courtesan. Yeah, she was a courtesan, Marie Duplessis, who was the lover of the author. So, and she died, and was a famous person. So he wrote this book kind of based on her. And in the story, Armand is our main character, who meets the writer, I guess, in the beginning of the book. And he's really sick, and he tells his story to the writer. So we already know the ending from the start, that she will die. But yeah, and so it's a story about obsession. And we had a lot of discussions about this in the book club, that it's not love, it's obsession. And because he doesn't know her. He just sees her and goes around and thinks about her for months, and then he sees her again, and he kind of lucky enough to become her lover. But he's not a rich man, so he can't really afford to let her live the way she wants, or more like used to, because they're so stuck in how, in this time of life, it's at 1800 something, I guess. Yeah, probably middle of the 18th century, 1847. He published. Oh, sorry, that was another book. Yeah, oh well, late 1890s something, I guess, maybe 1880s, and yeah, I mean, it was a good book. I can't say I really liked Armand, and I didn't really like her either, but she grew on me. But the writing is beautiful, and the description is beautiful, and I'm not sure if the writer wants us to be really annoyed with him, or just that's how men were, or it's difficult for me to say. But yeah, it was kind of emotional towards the end, but it didn't really touch me very deep, but a bit. I gave it 4 stars because it is a very well written book, and it's a lot about how society works, and I hope anyway it is kind of a criticism of the time of that time in France, in Paris. So it's an interesting book to read in a group and discuss together, I would say. Yeah, but not my favorite classic. And then I read something totally different, which was The Vanishing Cherry Blossom Bookshop, which is a really cute story. One of these Japanese, like healing books, as they call them nowadays. The author is Takayura Asakura. And it's interesting when I saw Asakura, because Sakura is the cherry blossom. So I don't know if this is really name. But yeah, I really liked this. It also was a bit repetitive, so I gave, what did I give? Well, I gave it 4.5 stars. I think some people will get very emotional by this book. I got a bit emotional. I thought I would become more emotional, but the people in the book they're not really showing their feelings. They're sad and alone, but they're not crying, they're not breaking up or breaking apart. So then I didn't either. But it is about this bookshop that you can only find during spring when the cherry blossoms are out, and you have to read the same book as the girl in the bookshop to be able to come there. And so that is the repetitive story. We get to meet her in the bookshop when she's opening up. She has this cat who together they choose the book to read. And then we follow a person in our world in Japan who chooses that book. But it doesn't start with that person starting to read a book, or we get the whole backstory first of the lonely life of taking care of your dead mother's things in the first story, and how that woman is very sad about how things turned out. Her brother lives in another country, and she finds a little prince and starts reading it. And that's a lovely book. If you haven't read it, it's a really, really good book. So, and then we get to follow another person, an old man who's kind of lost his memory, and that was probably most emotional for me, because my dad is losing a bit of his memory. Not as bad as the man in the book, but it is happening. And so we follow the Little Prince, and then we follow a Japanese story that I was curious to read. That was the 10 Night of Dreams that I found interesting, and later in the book, Spring and Azura. So 2 Japanese books I never heard of and I'm curious about. And at the end towards we read Peter Pan. We don't read it, but follow 2 twins who kind of grew up with the story and the play. So it's a lot about the love for stories, but more about the connection with other people and how important it is with our relationships. So it's sweet, kind of sad, and interesting story. And then I read, and also during the month of April, not just for a week, Anne of Green Gables by Lucy Maud Montgomery, and this is one of my top favorite books of my whole life, because I've been reading this since I was a little child. And now I forgot that I was thinking of to show you my Swedish book. I think I have it here. Yes, I have in Swedish it's called Ann på Grönkulla. And so I've been reading this book most of my life, and I bought this one maybe 2 or 3 years ago. So this was the second time I read it. I started reading in the Swedish book, and I read an English book, and I did forwards and backwards, and then I just decided to continue with the English. And I assume you know the story. This is just so beautiful, so many clever and fun things and really sad things, and it's so wise, and her aunt's love for beauty and nature around her, and her kind of she's really upset about having red hair and freckles. So when I read this as a girl, I was a bit annoyed by Anne, or she kind of destroyed my own feelings for my freckles. But I love them now. But this was a time when you were not supposed to have freckles. You were not supposed to have red hair. But it was, this is not my real hair color. But anyway, if you haven't read Anne of Green Gables, I highly recommend it. And I also highly recommend her other series, the Emily books. Also, that's 3 books. I mean, Anne is actually 7 books. I have all 7 here. Still haven't read all of them. I read to book 4 maybe. And yeah. So read them. And then I finished the month with a really cute story, The Woods and Wisp by Paula Merrill. And she's the, if you know, Paula Merrill is this really well-known booktuber, the Cottage Fairy. She doesn't do any films anymore since she got a child, well, very rarely anyway. And love her writing. And this was such a cute story about this rabbit called Wisp. And she lives in the northern wood, and she's been there her entire life. She's never left it. But when her friend and colleague or boss, who is this old squirrel, she gets more and more sick, the squirrel, and one day she just leaves and disappears. And Wisp is so upset and sad, and this star arrives and says, you have to help her. You have to go and find her missing parts of her soul. So she needs to go to the city, and there's a city just full of animals. So it's a kind of adventure story, but full of wise words, and it's just so cute and wise, and but also full of snail slime. So if you, like me, or more like me, I would say, have difficulty with slime, just be warned. But it's not too much. But yeah, it's and it's really interesting about this life of living very sheltered, or how you can look at life in different ways, and yeah, love for nature. Oh, it's just a lovely, lovely story. So yeah, I can really, really recommend this. So that was the books that I read in April. And before I say goodbye, I just wanted to show you my new stickers that I bought. I bought some new stickers for spring, and I really am so happy that I bought them. But these purple ones were really difficult to get loose. I had a plan to have like a border, this kind of border all the way here, but I realized that will take me ages to get them off the plastic underneath, so I gave up on that idea. So, well, I'll see you later, and I hope you have a really good reading month, and I would love to hear what you have read in April. Bye.